And we're back, Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day. Hope you're off to a good start this week as we look ahead. Plenty of golf to talk about across the mainland here as the Deere Classic is back front and center as we enter into the month of July up there in Moline, Illinois. And then we've got the Live Golf Series Part 2, which is going to be out in close to my neck of the woods, Pacific Northwest, up at Pumpkin Ridge in Portland, Oregon. So we're going to have some fun with both of these tournaments, as that's the new era, folks. This is where we are. You've got to embrace it. 2 tournaments. The guys are split up. Are you with the PGA Tour? Or are you with Live Golf? And to help us break that down, Geoff Fienberg's back. Geoff, who are you? You going to rip your shirt off and have an LIV black shirt with white lettering like New World Order, like we going back to the Hulk Hogan days?
No, that's certainly not going to be me. I like to just, I don't know, whatever, like a lot of people who comment regularly on Live. Whatever comment I make, it feels like to anyone who responds, I'm on that team at the moment. I have biases in life, like a lot of things, but I guess. But overall, Travis, I'm just sad because I'm a spoiled North American sports fan. Mm-hmm. And like, we don't grow up with that soccer structure or, so now it's just like the fracturing of it saddens me. I, by no means, am not afraid to acknowledge the PGA Tour's mistakes, as they probably slept on things for a long time. And I'm not afraid to, take shots at Live and acknowledge, some of the awkwardness that involves there. I don't like to get involved, it's weird that like the Saudi money stuff doesn't bother me as much because I think the world is just this whole giant hypocrisy and that's a game I don't want to play. But at the same time, like some of the players' responses to questions have outraged me. So yeah. I'm totally all over the map. I'm invested in golf. You more than anybody, Travis, you've literally invested everything in your life in the sport of golf. Not everything correlated to the PGA Tour and betting. I don't even mean it like that, but of course, like we're gonna be passionate. You've invested so much of your time and your life into the PGA Tour, so it's okay to like be emotional and care about these things.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And I mean, I'm in the Tour's backyard. I mean, they're literally a mile and a half, 2 miles down the road here. Just across the intercoastal here into Ponte Vedra Beach. And so I have a lot of close friends there. My wife worked for the PGA Tour for 13 years. I ran the PGA Tour academies for 10 years. And yeah, like I said yesterday on the podcast, every business has its shortcomings, its opportunities, things that they didn't do. What bothers me and where I have a hard time coming to grips, Geoff, is when I look at LIV and I look at what they're doing and how they're handpicking these players and they're throwing so much money at them, and God bless them, go get the money. I am not saying it or I am not being critical. Go get the money, right? But where I draw the line, is this the best thing for professional golf? Is this model going to be the best thing for professional golf? And I just don't think it is. And that's where I draw the line. Now, does that mean I have to support every decision the PGA Tour has ever made in the last 25 years? No, it doesn't. I don't think that makes me a hypocrite. If it does, then so be it. I'm comfortable with that. But I just don't think this is the best thing for professional golf. And that's where I draw the line. I hate seeing these stars split up. I hate seeing the field at the Deere Classic, which is never good. I mean, we're going through a stretch here now over the next month, which is going to be very bumpy for the PGA Tour. This is going to be bumpy roads for the fields that you're going to be seeing next week, of course, opposite of the Open, but up in Detroit, Minneapolis at the 3M Open. I mean, we've got a stretch here.
And it's going to be very polarizing. The month of July post-Open, how it pertains that the PGA Tour has a real problem. That it's almost, and what's sad, it's like they acknowledge they have a problem, they've done nothing, and they're like, we don't know what to do. So it's very humorous watching them trying to figure this out, kind of doing nothing, kind of like, so thinking everything is going to be okay. But you are not wrong, Travis. As Live now exists, these sorts of fields are going to create some very polarizing discussions about the types of players in the PGA Tour and its entire construct. But it all comes back to, what's the PGA Tour to do? Like they have great relationship with John Deere, 3M, Rocket Mortgage. These are the Barbasol. These are preeminent international companies that any organization of any kind would bend over backwards to get in bed with. So it's like when they tell baseball to make it like 145 games, everything's already kind of bought and paid for, and it's the lifeblood of the sport. So as it exists, and we acknowledge Live's here to totally blow up that lifeblood model, I guess. And I'm not here to say I'm smart enough to have the answers. I do not. But something's got to be done. And July, as you said, it's going to be sharks swimming in the water big time around a pontoon boat.
Well, they talk about the fall series, right? And something that's going to happen there. But I think they're going to have to put their eyes on the July series or whatever you want to call it, because look out. I mean, we're going into a tournament where Adam Hadwin is the favorite as we come on the air at 11-1. And so that's an issue. I love Adam Hadwin, fellow Canadian up there for you. Love his coach, and Mark Blackburn, and love the way he's playing right now. But Adam Hadwin can't be the favorite going into a PGA Tour event. So anyway, that's neither here or there. I kind of jokingly open up the show with who you with. You with PGA Tour, you with Live. That's kind of what it is. Now you have to make a decision. I've been talking with a lot of players on the podcast. Yeah, you got to draw a line, and there's a division there. I think Xander yesterday made the decision that he's going to stay with the PGA Tour. I think the world was lifted off him, and I think he played free golf and went out and got a win. Now, I think Sahith, made a mistake there in trying the shot he did out of the bunker, but he kind of handed it to him in some ways. Making double was a little bit easier for Xander. But I do think some of these guys are starting to come to peace with their decision, and they'll free him up and they'll play better golf. And I think Xander kind of fit into that boat. Let me ask you this before we get to the John Deere. The Lives up in Pumpkin Ridge. I actually played Pumpkin Ridge in a tournament in junior golf, like back in, I want to say like 1990, 91. I don't remember anything about it. I do know the U.S. Women's Open was there in 97 and 2003. I remember that. The men's U.S. Am was there, I remember, in 96. I graduated high school in 95. And, good looking golf course just northwest of Portland. And it's interesting. I know there's a lot of people that are not happy that this event is there. In the Portland community, the Saudi back money with this tour. But when you look at this field, which is, there's no question this is a better field, right? Headlined by DJ Brooks and Bryson. I mean, yes, it's only 40 some odd players, but you look at this field, you look who's committed, who's drawing the line. Who's the biggest surprise to you right now in the names that you look at have went to the Live?
Technically, while I shouldn't be surprised, it remains Brooks Koepka. I mean, in theory, yes. What is a more perfect situation so long as he could still play the majors? So long as he could still play the majors, he had this attitude of, I don't care about other events, I can still play the majors. But in the totality, Travis, of his February comments, his U.S. Open comments. Now, let me backtrack a little. I understand Dustin Johnson made comments in February saying he was committed to the PGA Tour. But his comments essentially ended at, I love the PGA Tour. It's done so much for me. I'm committed to it. End of comment. Brooks used that Riviera February time to make that comment and then throw in another paragraph literally making fun of anyone who was a big enough loser to leave. Follow that up with the U.S. Open comments which is like, the only unacceptable answer to anything live related is why do you care? Stop asking me. That, to me, that was the only answer. You could say I'm going for you could say anything. You could say I'm PGA ended it. The only answer from any player that I found reprehensible and unacceptable was like, why do you care? It's not important. No, as we said off the top, we've all invested a lot into pro golf. It's actually important. And I'm a fan. Like, it is what it is. It's actually important to me. So that was like the red line that I hated. And this was a guy that sold himself as being different. Now he shares a locker room with 40 guys that he wouldn't think could hold his jock strap. Like, everything he built up, what he was, like, just to me goes out the window. So I'm actually the most surprised he left, despite, you would argue, it being the most conducive to his mindset. Still, I'm surprised.
Yeah, I don't believe a word any of these guys say anymore about it, because even when they have signed up to play and the questions come, they still don't know how to answer the questions. Right? They still don't know how to answer the questions. They're uncomfortable. They're defensive. They look embarrassed. Patrick Cantlay got caught.
It doesn't look like a Scott Boras client being introduced on his new team, right? With the owners.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah.
And I know it's not the same as team sport, but I keep saying I've never seen guys get $100 million contract and not like want to hold up a jersey and smile ear to ear. The fans in the other city are angry. They've turned on you. People are mad. That's fine. You're still on the other side of the country, ear to ear. Everybody. Your mom, your wife, your kids, everybody, like, in front of cameras. You don't care that you're hated in Boston anymore. You don't give a shit. I don't know. These guys still apparently give a shit. Because no one is smiling with their big new deal.
No, they're not.
Weird. That's kind of why that's all you almost need to know, that like it's weird. Now, Travis, at the same time, I get really upset when people who are like hardo, like hardened to the bone PGA, scoff at Bryson and Brooks leaving.
Right.
As if, like, they're not one of our golden six. Excuse me? Like, when Bryson DeChambeau is healthy, he has the skill set to be the best player in the world. When Brooks Koepka is healthy, we could probably argue there's not a more feared player on a leaderboard in big events than Brooks Koepka. To like minimize their departure is so embarrassing for that like only PGA positive points crowd also.
Yep.
So like, yeah, I'm guilty of not maybe missing a call, but I'm literally just trying to call it balls and strikes. And I think you said it best. I just want what is the best for professional golf, but I don't think that's live. That doesn't, I think the PGA Tour is so flawed and far from perfect, but what's best for the future of pro golf, it's not what live is trying to do.
No, I agree. And that's where I come down. And I think when you draw that line and that's the way you go, okay, there can, both things can be right. I mean, you can, all right, I'm happy for you that you went and got your money. Eugenia Chikara, I exchanged DMs with a fair amount. I got to know him at the PXG College Showcase last year. I watched him shoot 59 in the practice round. I mean, this kid is dynamic. He's got a personality. He's the number 2 collegiate ranked player in the world at Oklahoma State. He was going to come back. And now he decides to forgo all of that and sign with Liv. And I sent him a DM when he did. I said, "Hey, congratulations, man. I'm happy for you. I only wish the best for you." And even though that I don't want him to do that, I'm still, excited for him and go get it. He's a good kid. And he he's influenced by Sergio a fair amount. He helps him with his game. So you hope that this is the right decision. I agree. Brooks, I'm surprised with Eugenio. This is now you're tapping into one of the best collegiate players who now is going over there. And I hate that, Geoff. I hate it because I want him in the field this week with Pearson Cootie and all of these other young and up and coming players through the stretch in July. And now he's going to Live. And that just pisses me off in some ways. But at the same time, both can be true. He probably got paid a nice chunk of money. When I was 21, 22 coming out of college, and someone offered me, I don't know what he was offered. I have no idea. But I'm going to go ahead and say if James Pyatt was offered, what, $6 million? Somewhere in there. I'm going to say Chicaro's getting 10 to 15. That's my guess. So,
yeah, and you're probably, and again, this is that whole, it just brings me back. Like, I get it. They take the money. I'm still allowed to be sad that the pro league, the sport I love at the professional level, is being fractured. I liked when the only conversation we would have about moving tours right now would be like, I wonder when the Hogards are moving to Orlando. Like, right? Like, when is that? When are they just going to start to try to just be full-time PGA? That was growing up. That was the only conversation we had, like guessing when that player is going to move to Orlando or Scottsdale to begin his quest on the PGA Tour, because that's where they wanted to play. I want to ask you, because to me, unless something's been, unclear, I haven't read like fine print of anything. The situations like Chikaro, having never been a member of the PGA Tour, do those same rules apply? Like, if I am that guy, I can look at it like sign a 2-3 year deal with Liv, no different than a college player leaving to help his family in the NBA or NFL. Like, take that money, play Liv, and then, like, will the road be blocked to him to try to obtain a PGA Tour card? He never had one to resign or be suspended from, like the other players. So I am sort of curious about that, and don't want to hate on any young player who maybe even in his head is looking at that path. Like, I'm going to get paid to do this, and there'll still be plenty of time for me to chase PGA Tour, Ryder Cup, all that stuff. Yeah. But this protects my family for life right now in case I'm Norman Zhang. Yeah, just as an example,
And Chikara, you're not overstating it saying that he is a Ryder Cup player. I remember when we were watching him and talking with him, like, we were thinking this kid is that good. I mean, he is going to be that special.
So, like, do they know? Do the players who've like the rookies, the college kids that we agree are the saddest ones to probably see leave because of the future impact? I feel like it's been less clear to me what sort of recourse the PGA can have if they've never even been a member.
I think it's got to be cleaner and more in Chikara's favor from that standpoint. And now he was number 2, I think, in PGA Tour University. He was up there, right? So he was going to be part of that. And I know the tour put in some stuff from that standpoint as well to slow this down of live cherry picking from that. I don't know exactly the details of that, but I do know there was some literature put into the PGA Tour University aspect and how that works in graduation up into professional golf and the PGA Tour chain. Now, he's eliminated himself from all of that, right? As I understand, he's not going to finish. He's not going back to college for a senior year, which he was going to do. So he's eliminated himself from PGA Tour University. To your point, he's never been a member of the PGA Tour. So you would have to think that as this plays out, he is in a better position, right? To be able to
go to Q school one day. Like, if Liv folded in 2 years, why couldn't he be allowed to go into Q school? He never was a member to be suspended or kicked out of Q school.
That's right. So I think he's in a position to do that. But with that said, I hate it because, I want to watch Chikara this July in the United States, selfishly.
No. And again, it's like, really, I guess in the end, just comes back to being it's just the overall situation. I'm sad because I'm a spoiled North American sports fan who, like, I don't cheer for the sport, like the sport where Messi and Neymar only played in big competitions versus each other. That's not the sport I cheered for.
Right.
Or I cheer for. And I don't like that. Not to say I don't watch or care about soccer. I don't want to turn that into that. I like the leagues. The leagues I am a fan of seemingly all have the best players play. That's where they all want to play. The concept of playing anywhere else is beyond comprehension. But that's not happening in golf. And Travis, what do you, I'll say this maybe from a betting perspective, this is important to me. As it pertains to Liv, these stories that the money, the purses they win are just going against their guarantees. Like, have you been seeing that? Is very confusing and would affect any sort of, like, I was under the impression every Live event was like East Lake of the FedEx Cup, where you essentially got a balloon payment and then you got your individual purse payment. There's some rumblings out there that the purses in the events just go against the guarantee. They're not double dips.
I don't think we know the answer to that because I've heard both sides of the story. Now, I would say based off of what I've been told, it doesn't work against it. But now in some of the rumors that I've been reading, that there has been from more than one source that it does go against it. So I think there's a little bit of a mixed bag there. I've been trying to actually get a little more to the bottom of that. And I don't think I have that definitive answer to you. Now, would I be surprised if the backing where the money's coming from is being a little shady on that? I mean, I don't think that would surprise anybody, right? As far as how that's going to play out. But that is a very interesting point in how that will play out from a yeah, that's a big deal, right? Because if Charles Schwartzel makes $4 million to win the event, or 4.75 with the team event, and he was guaranteed 20, okay, now is that 4.75 working against his 20, or is that 4.75 in addition to his 20? That's the question at hand here. So yeah, there's going to be, look, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It might be, but as things go down, oh, wait a minute, that water's kind of warm in that cooler over there. Can we get some colder water out here? Like, little things start to come about, and it's not as green. And I think I'll finish with this, and then we got to move on to the John Deere. Here's what pisses me off the most about this, and why I think it's just horrible for the professional game. I think, Geoff, we are already out of position right now, as we sit here and talk today, that a player is taking money over playing in major championships. And that's a sad place to be. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I think the major championships, I don't think they're going to leave them out. I don't. But they're going to have to make that decision. But if they did, and they said, look, you can't play in the Masters if you're part of the live event, you've got guys right now that have taken the money that they'll be like, okay, I'm okay with that. That's a problem.
I do agree. I am somewhat of the hopeful mindset that the Masters will honor their champions exemptions, but make it nearly impossible for new people to get in. Like, I don't think they want the fight of kicking out past champions, but I think they'll do everything in their power, I hope, to make sure non-qualified players have as an impossible a road into that tournament as humanly imaginable.
Right.
Because I don't know, how do they quantify if a guy's ranked 40th in the world today and he has a mediocre live season? How do you quantify, like, where do you draw the line? Like, how do you quantify the line? Because I like to say, maybe, people like to say I pick on Brooks. Well, he doesn't have the Masters exemptions. He's got a handful of PGA and US Open ones, and he's earned them, and they should never, ever be taken away from him. I believe they should never be taken away from him. But at some point, with how he's played in the last 2 years, Travis, his world ranking, like we saw it with Spieth. Like, once you lose because it's on the timeline, like, once your good timeline starts to disappear, you can tumble really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to face that quick tumble. So right now he's 20. What happens when he's 35, 40, and if he has one top 5 live finish in these weird events? How does Augusta go and quantify what that's worth?
Yeah. A lot of questions. There's a lot of questions there. The Masters ruling will be significant. All right.
They must love the the fact that the Masters in some ways holds the future of the PGA Tour in their hand. They must love the power. Like, they always love the power they hold. They must be drooling at the position this has found themselves in because of all this.
Right. All right. Quad City DJs, TPC Deere Run, John Deere Classic. I played this golf course. Do you remember when Michelle Wee played this and she had heat exhaustion? Actually, it was so hot. This was back in the early 2000s, I believe. And I played this course the next day, right after that tournament, on a Monday. We come rolling in. We had a traveling show. And we roll in. It's the Monday morning after Deere Run or John Deere Classic. And we say, hey, can we jump out there. And of course, we had some connections. They were like, no problem. Go play it. Sunday pins. Go knock yourself out. We had a blast. It was awesome on Monday playing that golf course just like it was set up on Sunday. It was sweet. And it was like 170 that day. It was so damn hot. And so that course, I've played it a couple of times and we've seen it on TV. Jeff got, pretty generous fairways.
Yeah.
Very receptive greens, I remember playing in like the golf. I've played a lot of TPCs, some tournament golf. Like the greens are pretty vanilla. There's not a lot of movement to them. You can clean up. You can have some great putting weeks here. But also just the fact how long the damn rough was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like the rough was just ridiculous. And it usually is, but it's pretty playable. So they navigate it pretty well. But it's pretty generous off the tee, and you're going to see a lot of birdies here, of course. 2021, Lucas Glover won it. He's played well here in the past. 2019, Dylan Fratelli had a long shot. In 2018, Michael Kim, DeChambeau, we talked about him. He won it here in 2017. Let's just get right into it here because, look, I found myself doing the normal things that I do every single week. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to play some names that I like this week and that I tend to kind of gravitate towards a little bit. I like their games. I think they're a decent fit. And I'm just going to roll with some guys that I like this week because let's face it, anything can happen this week, can it? I mean, Adam had one 10-1, Webb Simpson 12-1. As much as I love where Webb's going now, Christian Bezuidenhout 20, McCarthy 22, Charles Howell 22. Thagala 25, Mav McNeely 25. I mean, get me excited, will you, about something there up top?
Okay, it's hard for me to get you excited about anything at the top. So, but I will say to the point you're making, a lot of us sort of acknowledge weeks like this sort of, no disrespect to any players. They're tour cards, they're stars in my mind. Like Brian Gay's a legend to me, 20 years doing what you do.
Yep.
But this is the week you play your proverbial losers. Like if there's a guy you like and you believe in him, and you don't bet him this week, you should probably never bet him. Like ever. Like if you don't believe in a guy enough to bet him this week, then I don't know why on earth you could bet him at any other event ever.
It's true.
In some respects. So sometimes I think that's going to be a cheaper week, and then you get to the point where, I don't know, you've bet a consortium of losers. Cheaper because like the shortest bet I made was at 40, which allows me a little more money to sort of sprinkle down the board. But yeah, it's the play your guys. If you ever believed in a guy, this is your time to play them. I would not be anyone. You could bet anybody. I would not besmirch anyone's betting pick. That's another. You can't make fun of other people's picks this week either. Anyone's allowed.
Okay, so I'll start. Okay, because so people that listen to me, they know that I've been touting Adam Svenson. Okay, so I'm going to start with him. 55-1. That's my boy.
Yeah.
I've just been milking him along, top 20s. And, sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. He was T18 here a couple years ago. He's a nice driver of the ball, great putting or great iron game last week at the Travelers 25th. His putter is starting to wake up. Adam Svenson is going to win the John Deere Classic at 55-1. Now, let me just give you something to watch out for with Svenson, okay? And I know a lot about his game. And just been following him. He's intriguing to me. I think he's got a high ceiling. I think he's finding his way on the PGA Tour. And you look at his finishes, they're just steadily getting better. But watch out if he's there late on a Sunday with a 4-footer. Watch out. Because you might see kind of what you saw with Lexi. I don't know. It's in there. But it's just watch out. That's why you got to be careful with Adam. This is his week. I can feel it in my soul.
I hope you're right, Travis. We didn't speak about this pre anything. I have bet Svenson this week, a good Canadian boy.
There you go.
Anytime you're tracking Svenson, it's like 8 feet for birdie. Doesn't make all of them, but
Yep.
if they come in bunches, hopefully we can make enough to contend. I know exactly what you mean about those 4-footers. He could go full Varner from 4 feet, not even touch the cup. Not even touch the cup from 4 feet. It's in him. That's part of the game. You also said something else that I am really sticking with this week, and maybe it can burn me. Any decision that I have to make this week, I am leaning with the unknown ceiling of a Svenson type. If you're going farther down the board, like the unknown ceiling of a kid or a guy I believe in, I would much rather make that outright bet than I'm going to name some names, and if they win, it'll be embarrassing. And I don't mean just like I'm Armour, Streelman, like the journeyman veteran. Like I feel like I know what you're capable of. That's not to mean like they can't spike, but I'm so much more attracted to the unknown ceiling of some of these players than counting on a Streelman eclipse to happen, for lack of a better term, at the same number.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me give you another name, and then you give me one. Well, let me just take a step back on this veteran train. If I had to pick a veteran train, okay, on the Streelman discussion,
losers, I still want people to play their losers. So that supersedes my follow-up point of I'm playing younger guys. Play your losers. If you've been betting on Ryan or Chez Reavie, play them.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah. That's exactly who I was just going to say. I'm not a Reavie guy usually, but I can see it. 45-1. Am I excited about that? No, but I could see Reavie. He's playing well. He's starting to put some things together here. I could see him come in here, this type of field, and clip one off. So, on that narrative, I would throw Reavie in there. But on the high ceiling narrative, to go with the Svenson pick, I would then give you 110-1 Austin Smotherman.
Yeah, exactly. Total. Like Smotherman, Gotterup, Buckley, like in that range, I'm so much more inclined to, again, play that younger ceiling than my Vaughn Taylor or Dylan Wu at the same number. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with that aspect of it. 100%.
Real quick on Smotherman. I think from a ball striking standpoint, he could be the best ball striker in the field.
Ooh,
I think from an off the tee approach game, he's right there. If he's not the best, I'll put him as a top 5. Now Smotherman's clunky a little around the green, and he's not a world-class putter yet. So I don't think you just can't be a dog around the greens here. You need opportunities.
If you need to chip this week, you're probably losing anyway. Like
you're not going to get lapped.
Yeah. Like if you need to rely on your short game, you're outside of that par 3 third shot layup that Ryan Moore sticks to 2 feet. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be contending at all if you are required to be saving pars.
Oh yeah. You're going to get lapped here if you're where I was when I played it, trying to get it up and down out of this hay, and so I think Smotherman, like Svenson, he's going to have a lot of looks. Look, and now you're rolling the dice on the putt luck, right? You need to have a great putting week. We know that here. You got to make some putts. Let's have one Smotherman and let's get that first win. If not you, Svenson. Those are my 2 guys, right? That I'm running with. Do you have a guy that you would kind of fit that category at the high ceiling that you like this week?
Well, I've on the low end, I've played Cameron Davis 45-1. I just like a lot of what I am seeing right now from Cam Davis. I have bet on John Ha at 66-1. Just a lot of things, in my opinion, coming together there as well. From the longer shot in the ceiling angle, I've bet Sam Ryder 125-1. His approach and putting stats are starting to really come around at a field that will be incredibly conducive to that. So that is sort of where my mind is looking at a long shot right now.
I think Gotterup is interesting as well. I've talked a lot about him. He's been on the podcast in the past. University of Oklahoma kid, 43rd at the U.S. Open, 35th at the Travelers. This is the kind of player that we're talking about, like a Chikar, right? Like we want to see the player, I think, in July, and I'm intrigued by him. How good of a pro is Gotterup going to be? He's long. I think his iron game is solid. So we'll have to see how that translates. I'm not over the top gung ho about him, maybe because I've been kind of caught up with Chikara's game and seeing it up close. But I think he is someone that I think I would look for him to make the cut and see if he can get in contention on Sunday and see how he responds to that, right? PGA Tour event late on a Sunday, and see how he responds. You look at like recent trends coming in. I'm not putting a lot of stock into that here this week. We've seen some guys come in here really not in great form and play well. And I think on those lines, the guy that scares the shit out of me the most is probably Maverick McNeely up top there at 25-1. I mean, that's the guy that hasn't been playing that well as of late, but we know he can go, right? We've seen him, and he can get up there. He's going to give himself a lot of opportunities. I think from the favorites standpoint, if I had to throw a little money up there, I think the shortest I would go is McNeely at 25.
Yeah, I like McNeely. I've bet McNeely a lot this year, and that's almost, you kind of just alluded to it. Like, I was betting him too much where I was forced to like really stare at the stats and the results, and they actually weren't nearly as good as I had been perceiving they were. So he's not playing as well as I had hoped, but I am one of those people that definitely believe in him and his game. So Patrick Rogers as well, near the top. His number has come down. He contended here the year Bryson won. It seems like he's consistently at least showing up at one moment in golf tournaments. Had that nice US Open until, a bit of a disaster on Saturday, and continued, I think, to play pretty decent. So I don't mind him. But again, at an event like this, Travis, it's a psychological battle, because Adam Svenson, I was talking to someone earlier who also likes Svenson. Like, I bet him last week at like 210-1. Bet Patrick Rogers last week at like 150. So it's like you're so used to getting to play these guys in such a different context that to then have to double click on them at 30-1, like it takes a bit. Like, you're just mentally got to get over it. That being said, there have been so many times, there have been horrible field events like this where me and the people I talk to be like, I really like that guy, but I don't want to bet him at 28-1. That just does not work for me. And then, Russell Henley has the best Houston Open, and you're like so mad that who cares that you can normally get him at 100? This is a different event, like different variables. But yeah, it's all part of it. And one big tip I'd like to give this weekend.
Yeah.
With the live betting. It's Canada Day this week, which is exciting. We have a long weekend. I'm going to be up north. You guys have your birthday in the following weekend, I believe. But tournaments like this, Travis, the live betting operations, the names aren't big enough for them to know anything. I'm telling you, Friday night, as like a guy in that late wave Friday comes in, is posting a score late, Saturday morning, guy getting off to that great move, the books are going to have stale numbers. There's going to be a player who the guys running the books have never heard of that you respect, that is like doing something. You see normally, like in normal events with the live betting, they have the guys running the system. They're like hawked on like 8 to 12 players. That guy hits it to 12 feet. The number drops instantly because they're the best players. And the players in this field are literally the players that it takes them making 3 birdies in a row for the sportsbook to even notice they're playing at the moment. So I assure you, you are going to find, if your timing is right, some really, really nice live opportunities this week on some stale numbers on a player. The books they just don't know. Like, they don't know, and they don't respect the player, but you're far more familiar with them than they are.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. This field, more than any other, probably until the next 3 events too, it'll be the same way, unfortunately, on the PGA
it will be
Tour.
probably.
Yeah. I would go, I find myself really, I've already given you Svenson at 55, Smothering at 110. All right, I'll go as low as McNeely. The other guy that is intriguing to me is Stallings. I like to feel like we had a little something to do with last week. Had him on the pod Wednesday, goes out and finishes 8th. Had to get on him a little bit. He went out and responded. It's kind of feast or famine with Stallings right now too. He's kind of a
Consistent
lately here. Like he's been really putting up some pretty special stuff with his irons. And so all right, certainly this experience here, like you just need that, like, okay, hit the ball like that, a lot of opportunities. Give me positive 7.5 in the approach game and have a great putting week. Okay. Stallings would be another one. I think, at the bottom end, 35 to 1 ish that I would throw out there. And then, back to the Bombers as we kind of get into the hundreds here. Let's have some fun here.
How do you, having played the course, because you look at the past history, doesn't like scream Bombers at all. It's like the Zach Johnson, Steve Stricker profile. Even the Bryson win was like baby Bryson pre-transformation Bryson, where it was wedges and irons and do you see like the ability of a Cam Champ or even a Patrick Rogers to like bomb and gouge a course like this?
I don't think this is the place.
It's never seemingly shows up in the winner's circle.
I don't think this is the place. Although Rogers was second here, wasn't he? I think, or second or
the year Bryson won, he contended. Yeah, he was.
I don't think this is a bomber's paradise by any stretch. Now, can you get hot and bomb? Can you have a little bit of an advantage? Of course. Driving distance, it always has some advantage, but I'm not factoring that in at all this week. At all. It's get the ball in play, generous fairways, and let's go to work with the irons, and let's have a great putting week on these bent grass greens, right? It's kind of vanilla, Geoff. It's the course is one of my least favorite TPCs.
It's visually pretty boring I shouldn't say that, but I find you can get confused. This one, Twin Cities, a lot of like the Midwest TPCs all look the same to me. And that someone out there is probably like, you're so wrong. And they're probably right, because I've actually never been to any of them, but they all just like, if you took away the John Deere signage, I would guess like any of these Midwestern TPCs that I'm looking at.
125 to 1, Lee Hodges.
Ooh.
That's I'll give you that one too. Solid in the approach game, gives himself a lot of looks, decent putter, solid 5 to 10 feet. That's another one of my guys here, Lee Hodges, that I'll give you this week. And you look at his recent form, 25th at the Travelers, nice putting week, hit the ball very well in Canada, struggled with his driver. His driver probably is not a great driver of the ball, but he's not a dog either. And I'm kind of, I think I'm trending a little bit on giving up as I look at some of my models and picks. I'm giving up a little bit around the greens here to get more looks. And then, obviously, look, Lee Hodges, if Lee Hodges hits the ball like he did in Canada and putts like he did at the Travelers, he wins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, got to put it all together. Absolutely.
Here's the place to do it.
Yeah. No, there are a bunch of guys. And here's the thing, as you could debate you from a betting perspective, Travis, you could honestly look at all those guys that are in the 40s and say pretty much everyone that's 60, 70, 80 , the exact same win equity, win probability at double the number, which is, I couldn't maybe debate some of those head-to-head points, but there's a reason, I guess. The books know who people like to bet on, so we're obviously seeing guys like Rogers and Mav and some of those guys being squeezed. But you can make cases that those guys 70, 80 have just the exact same win probability as all the guys people are looking to bet in the 30s and 40s.
Another guy that I tend to gravitate towards a little bit, we haven't seen him since the Players, is Pendrith, another Canadian.
Yes.
And he's back. And he was playing nice golf before, 13th at the Players. I mean, that's heady stuff. This doesn't feel like the best spot for him.
Travis, yeah, Svenson, Pendrith.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I've got him. Yeah, I mean, shit. And Hadwin's the favorite. Corey Connors, he's not in the field.
Pendrith's a bit of a gamble in the sense that it's just his first event out of injury. Yeah. But I think the 80 to 1s that I'm seeing are a really fair number. And if he is healthy, I think people who do invest in him, being it in placings or DFS, are going to be quite pleased with Pendrith this week. Like you, I am. I've been circling around him a bit.
Yeah, I'll probably lay off him, but I am excited to watch him start playing again. And I'm going down here, and I
he withdrew from the Canadian Open, so he was obviously dealing with something pretty significant.
Yeah. It feels too early, and it doesn't feel like the best place for him. I mean, because that dude can get on it with his driver. Gosh, I mean, you start saying some of these names out loud, right? I'll tell you. As I'm funneling through, I've looked at some of these models and other things like 1,000 times. And then pretty soon I start thinking I'm seeing things. But I keep coming back to Ramey. I don't know why. Okay. And I just feel like Ramey is a guy that I will play as a top 20 for sure. As we start looking into that, what is he, 150, I believe he is, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's a young guy playing to the ceiling.
150 to 1. I think Ramey would probably appreciate a little tighter landing areas off the tee. But Ramey's a bit of a plotter, and he won at Corrales, right? I guess similar type of field. He won on the Corn Ferry Tour in Maine. I don't know. I spent a little time with Ramey up at Hilton Head. Just got to know him and learning about his game. Solid wedge player. I think you get a lot of those 100 and 125 yard shots, 125, 150. I don't know. I feel like I need to be talked off him a little bit. I'm going to play him as a top 20, but if he wins his second PGA Tour event this week at 150 and I don't have it, I'm going to be pissed.
I got to ask, what are your thoughts on Stricker this week? Because I know I made my play the ceiling young over but like Stricker's a totally different animal. Playing well on Champions. We've seen Phil turn that into a major win last year at a course that will be totally conducive for him to just, I don't want to say blitz the field, but post as good of a number as anybody, literally.
Yeah. I mean, he made the cut. He made the cut. Did he make the cut last year?
Like, who'd you rather, like a head-to-head Stricker versus Zach Johnson? Like, where do you lean?
Stricker.
Yeah, same.
Yep. I would go Stricker. He did make the cut last year. He finished 41st, finished second last week at the US Open.
Great.
Made a run at Padraig. I mean, yeah. I mean, I could see him easily. I'm not going. All right. I'll go make the cut, but I don't think I'd stop there.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think I would stop there, but I would definitely take Stricker over Zach. I wonder how much. I wonder if Liv, just to see how much Zach Johnson would say no, how much they offered him, because Zach's not going, right?
Yeah, no chance.
Just to see, like they had their meetings and they're like, hey, let's take Zach and let's just see how much we can actually, because this is the kind of money they have, right? Let's just see how much we could throw on him, because he's going to say no, right? So let's go 100 mil. Hey, Zach.
Oh,
Zach, 100 mil. I'll wire it tonight. You in? We need you to be on the policy board too.
Oh, that's good.
Wouldn't you love to know what has been turned down?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you assume it has to flirt with what has been accepted on certain levels, but then you've also heard stories from, like you can't really believe anything the guys say, as you've mentioned, it has kind of been proven, Travis, because as people have told me even firsthand that every time they turn down an offer, very often the offer just comes back bigger. So when you publicly say, no, I'm out, that's not for me, that's almost part of the agent's plan for the player, as the offer comes in bigger. And that's another thing that people very close to it, the agents, you think the wives are putting pressure on the players to take the money? That agent and his cut is being must be putting so much pressure on some of these players to take that money for their interests.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. Well, and they go head to head this week. PGA Tour Live on their own homeland. Never thought I'd see it. Never thought I'd see it. I knew I would see, the exemptions are given and the releases to go play overseas, but never in the United States, right? Unless if it's a made for TV, like a Capital One, the match, whatever, or they call that. Like, okay, I get that. But never in my lifetime did I think in the United States that I would see an opposite field professional event against the PGA Tour. And here we are this week, the John Deere Classic. And then you've got the Live Invitational. They don't even have a damn name for these tournaments. Like, what is the name of it?
Portland.
They don't have a name.
It's literally the name. The name of it is Live Portland.
Can you imagine having so much money that you're like, you know what, guys, we're not even going to name our tournaments. Just show up. We're going to have a singles game. We're going to have a team competition, and we'll let you know when the shotgun starts.
Okay, but now I got to ask you this, because I might put you in a pretzel here, Travis, because
Right,
I put myself in the pretzel. Because holistically, we're very much aligned, I think. I think we've seen much of this the same way, and you see it so much deeper than I do because you have, decades of relationships, in that area and with people fully affected with the tour. Mm-hmm. But holistically, like I've said, Live is like this big budget blockbuster movie with an expensive cast that has no plot, no story. I don't care. Show me that indie movie with whatever that is amazing and getting the buzz. That's what would interest me more. So in the golf context, we would say, that is essentially pick two young players like Nick Hardy battling Svenson, Sahith, McNeely for the title. Holistically, I want to say McNeely versus Sahith will have me so much more than Portland, Brooks, or Bryson v. Reed. Holistically, I want to believe I will be so much more entertained by Sahith versus McNeely for a finish over what I'm saying they could provide. But I don't know that that's true. They could maybe there's a finish that maybe I say, oh my God, I want to watch that. I don't know. They have names that could do that to me. So holistically, I think I'm more into Korn Ferry battle than whatever Live is offering. I don't know when it's actually happening where I'll be. And I'm self-aware enough to almost admit that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I would tend to agree if I'm being completely honest with myself. And if it's Brooks and Bryson in the final group, I mean, you're not watching that. Yeah. I mean, you're lying, right?
Exactly. Or anything. The bad guy. There's just so many layers to it where, I'm self-aware enough to acknowledge I might be wrong on my holistic belief of where I might be in that situation.
I think it's, I'm with you. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to be watching some. Am I fully invested in it like a PGA Tour event? No, but it is the John Deere Classic. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier in the beginning as we go into July. This is going to be a tough stretch for the tour here. What's happening here in the Midwest with these events, and Chikara leaving is as little as a name as he is to most of my audience who they knows him some. He's been on the podcast too, but that hurts, because those are some names that you could.
You
be
don't have to
showcasing
know
and building up.
Chikara. Like, you don't have to know Chikara's name to understand the significance of the number 2 college player leaving. Like,
Right.
you don't have to be familiar with him or his game to appreciate how significant that move is in the landscape of where this thing could be going.
Right. And then, okay, it's the John Deere, and then it's, okay, crap, now we got this again in Detroit, and then it's a little bit better in the 3M, and it's, it's like, oh my goodness, like, really? Okay. I mean, it that you start to lose interest, right? That fringe, client of the PGA Tour, it starts to fade away a little bit with other interests, especially if on my phone it's Brooks and Bryson. As big a pain as the ass they both are, they're interesting.
Yeah.
And so that it has value. And look, we could continue to beat it up for hours on end and where this is gonna play out. But to answer your question, to finish the pod, yeah, I'll be watching, and I'm gonna go watch what I feel like is the most interesting at that moment in time when I have some spare time.
Some would argue like choice is great. Like, what's wrong with it? You have 2 choices of watching 2 young guys play for their first win, or watching these 2 guys whose personalities we know through the roof in this big money exhibition. Like, I don't know. There's choices. Many would say choice is great.
I mean, what's the perfect scenario in the John Deere right now on a Sunday? I think you have to say Thagala. That's number 1. He is, to me, in this field, the most polarizing.
Yeah. To your point on Thagala, like, my wife is a total normie golf fan. Obviously, it's on TV a lot in my house, so she could know a few players. She is like, she's very enamored with him.
Yeah.
So he comes off the TV and hits people differently, it feels like, than most of the players we experience. So yeah, Thagala, and I don't know whether it would be 2 young players or even to say like the Thagala versus Jason Day, and like his road back. Is Day even in the Open? I assume not, Travis.
I don't think he is. No,
like
he's not.
that whole, your career is never over, as guys who are bottoming out like Jason have moved to take the money. Kind of look like, I don't know whether it's 2 young guys or like one of them versus a Day type guy. I think can make for really cool TV. By the way, I'm pretty out on Jason Day this week. If he wins, I'll be happy for him, though. Like a lot of people, if he has a great week, he's an easy guy for me to cheer for. But I'm like fading him from betting and DFS totally.
It's got to be absolutely maddening coaching him, going through some of the changes that he has made to protect his back, and the guy just can't. He's just not a good iron player. Never has been, even back in his number 1 heyday. Just, it was right kind of in the beginning of the distance era, perhaps, right? When he was the man, and he was long enough, but he would wear you out with the wedges and the putter, and he would do just enough with his iron game. Now it's a completely different game. I mean, I just don't get it. Like, the guy, I've talked about this many times. Like, I watch his iron. How do you consistently lose 4, 5? Always in approach, always. And then yet a magician with his wedge. We know he can putt, and his driver is okay. It's slightly better than average. I don't know. Jason Day, maddening to me.
I don't want to pick on, this might seem like I'm picking on Day because it's probably really unfair, and he's had really an incredible career when you compare it to 99% of anybody. But I've heard multiple people who are like more connected with golf or inner circle than I am say him deciding or allowing his wife to have them live in Ohio probably cost him 1 major. Is that fair?
I mean, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's
like,
interesting.
if you showed a level of commitment to family, which is great, and life balance. And if you know Jason's backstory, he had a hellish childhood, and just making it like, and being what he has is one of the greatest stories we know on tour. So I feel silly saying the pulling any string, but it does feel like something was left on the table. Maybe even by injury, and some of it maybe by his own personal personal choice, but you could argue that personal choice is to be a better husband and father, and I'm not going to call that one out, I guess.
Yeah. I think Date is balanced, right, in his life. And you don't get the feeling that golf, I think there was a period where when he was the man, number one player in the world, winning a major, Jason Day's won 12 times the PGA Tour.
Well, he had like 6 in 1 year. It felt
like.
I
mean, I mean, he was the man, right? And he was thin. You remember how he was just fit, and like golf was his every day, all day. And you kind of grow out of that with a lot of kids and your family, and your wife has an opinion. Your wife has an opinion on where you want to be and what you should be doing at that moment. And so
it must be harder to grind when you accomplish that. I mean, everyone's wired differently, but I can see how life and grinding to win golf tournaments becomes so much harder once you achieve everything you wanted to achieve and the game's already given you everything.
And now you have 150 million in the bank. Can you imagine how hard it's going to be for those guys to go out and grind? I mean, the play, there's going to be some erosion in play. There just has to be. Like, these guys aren't grinding the same way. They're not playing for something outside of the almighty dollar. They're not playing for competition and these things. I mean, the juices will get going, but I just think there'll be some erosion. I do, over a course of time, when you're playing 8 events and you've already got that much money in the bank. Like, it's just human nature. I mean, shit, it's human nature. I talked about this yesterday. It's human nature to have a 5-shot lead and just feel like all of a sudden now you're behaving in a way that's different, that got you the 5-shot lead. And we just, as human beings, gravitate back to the pack, right? Every golfer most golfers are better as chasers, right? They play freer and they go, and then all of a sudden, NG Chun's got a 5-shot lead, which she comes back to the pack. Padraig Harrington, 5-shot lead. What's he do? Comes back to the pack. Xander Schauffele, 4-shot lead. What's he do? He's got to come back to the pack, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's hard just even in that aspect, let alone when you start clipping away 9, 10, 11 wins like Day, and all of a sudden now you're DJ with 21 and you got 150 in the bank. Like, how do you get up and, you know what? I think I'm going to go chip and putt. Psych. Hey, start the boat.
Yeah, and you're just confident enough in yourself. Like, 1 or 2 of the weeks, I'll spike, like, on the course. I'll be like, I'm good enough to blindly spike. Like, DJ can easily tell himself that, and it's true. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't need to grind. I know I'll spike 1 or 2 weeks in the year, and that'll take care of everything.
I think that we should have odds on how quickly Chase Koepka is eliminated from the field at LIV, because it's getting closer, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you wonder like what layers that is. I even make the joke, like, I feel like by Christmas, Pat Perez could be the highest paid rules official on earth. Like, if it keeps going in a certain direction, like, they're going to find jobs for these guys, I assume. Like, Pat Perez is announcing players off the first tee come Christmas.
He'll be on Live Live.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But yeah, you wonder. But I will say this: despite all like the Live, it can come off as bashing, and a lot of it is. I'm not one of these people that won't give them their wins. No. They're teeing it up for the second time this week, Travis, with field that has those names. People at Riviera and the Masters were saying it's dead before it started. Those are literally mainstream publication headlines. To not be able to acknowledge these, putting events 1 and 2 off as wins for Live, you're living in a bubble that's so crazy. So, like, I'm pro PGA Tour, but I do like to not acknowledge when Live has wins as wins. You're being naive and ridiculous as well.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I think you have to be, especially when you're in the business. Like I said, I talk about my wife. Like, look, I don't have to agree with it, but I'm going to be open-minded about it, and I'm going to be honest about it, and I'm going to talk about the wins that they have, and I'm going to talk about the tournaments. Now, I don't think it's quite to the point of the discussion that we just had with John Deere, but I do think it's certainly heading that way, and I'm going to be open-minded to where, all right, 2-3 years from now, God forbid, if that's the only tournament we're talking about, well, that's what it is. I love golf. I'm willing to swallow my pride and move forward based off of that. So anyway, that's that, Geoff. Great discussion. That was fun, man.
Anytime.
Let's do it again during the playoffs. How about that when we have some
anytime. Hit me up in the summer. Right, we'll throw down again. All the best, Travis.
Appreciate you, man. Enjoy your vacation and the best with that leg, and get out there on that golf course.